My brother didn't speak to me for 3 years, and yesterday he showed up at my door holding a baby that wasn't his. I'm 32F, and my brother David is 34. We were close once, the kind of close where you finish each other's sentences and have secret handshakes that embarrass your parents at family gatherings. That was before everything fell apart, before Rachel. I should start at the beginning, or at least the beginning of the end. David met Rachel when they were both in grad school at Northwestern. She was studying art history. He was getting his MBA, and they collided in the campus library over the last copy of some obscure economics text that she'd accidentally grabbed instead of her art theory book. It was a kind of meet-cute that rom-coms are built on, and for a while, their relationship felt like that too. They were together for 5 years, engaged for one of them. I was supposed to be her maid of honor. Rachel and I became close almost immediately. She didn't have any sisters, and I'd always wanted one, so we fell into that pattern easily. Girls' nights, shopping trips, late-night conversations about everything and nothing. She taught me how to do the perfect winged eyeliner. I taught her how to make our grandmother's lasagna recipe. She held my hair back when I got food poisoning from a bad oyster. I helped her pick out the dress she wore to David's company holiday party, where he got promoted. We were sisters in every way that mattered, bound not by blood but by choice and circumstance, and the genuine love we had for each other. So when she cheated on David 6 months before the wedding, it felt like she cheated on me too. I found out before he did. That's the part that still keeps me up at night sometimes. The part I replayed in my head 1,000 times wondering if I could have done something differently. She called me at 2 a.m., crying so hard I could barely understand her. She'd been at a conference in Chicago, some art historians thing, and she'd had too much wine with a colleague, an old friend from undergrad who'd just gotten divorced. One thing led to another. She swore it meant nothing, that she loved David, that it was a horrible mistake she'd regret for the rest of her life. I sat on my kitchen floor in the dark, phone pressed to my ear, listening to her sob, and I made a choice. I told her she had to tell him. I told her I'd be there for both of them, that people make mistakes, that if they loved each other they could get through anything. I was naive. I was 27, and I still believed in the redemptive power of love, in the idea that honesty could fix anything if you just tried hard enough. She didn't tell him. 3 weeks went by, and she acted like nothing had happened. We went to brunch. She helped me pick out curtains for my new apartment. She laughed at David's terrible jokes and kissed him goodnight when he picked her up from my place. And I sat there, complicit in my silence, watching my brother love a woman who was lying to him every single day. I gave her an ultimatum. Tell him or I will. She begged me not to. She said she'd handle it. She just needed the right moment. He was so stressed with work. She didn't want to ruin his birthday. His mother was coming to visit. There was always some reason to wait. I waited 2 more weeks. Then I drove to their apartment on a Sunday afternoon when I knew she'd be at her pottery class, sat my brother down at his own kitchen table, and told him everything. He didn't believe me at first. He got angry, defensive, accused me of being jealous of their relationship, of trying to sabotage his happiness. I'd never seen him look at me like that, like I was a stranger, like I was the enemy. I showed him the text messages Rachel had sent me that night, the ones where she confessed everything in panicked, typo-ridden detail. I watched the color drain from his face. I watched his hand start to shake. He asked me to leave. I did. I sat in my car in the parking lot of their building for 2 hours, waiting, watching the windows, seeing nothing. When I finally drove away, I felt like I'd committed some kind of violence, like I'd taken something beautiful and shattered it with my own 2 hands. But I also knew, deep down, that I'd done the right thing. He deserved to know. He deserved to make his own choices with all the information. He ended it with her that night. I know because Rachel called me at midnight, screaming at me, telling me I destroyed her life, that she'd never forgive me, that I was a terrible person who betrayed her trust. I let her yell until she ran out of steam, and then I said, very quietly, "You did this." "Not me. You." She hung up on me. We haven't spoken since. David didn't speak to me either. Not for a long time. I think in some ways he blamed me as much as he blamed her. I was a messenger, the witness, the living reminder of his humiliation and heartbreak. Every time he looked at me, he saw the sister who'd known about his fiancée's betrayal before he did, who'd sat on the information for weeks, who'd ultimately been the one to pull the trigger on his future. I tried to reach out. I left voicemails, sent texts, showed up at his apartment with his favorite takeout. He never responded. After a while, I stopped trying. 3 years. 3 Thanksgivings where he was conveniently working late. 3 Christmases where my mother would hand me a card from him with my name on it, written in his familiar handwriting, and I'd open it alone in my room and cry. 3 years of birthdays where my phone stayed silent. I got promoted, bought a house, started dating someone serious, and my brother knew none of it because he'd erased me from his life as completely as if I'd never existed. My mother tried to mediate, to bridge the gap, to guilt him into reconciliation. It never worked. He'd listen politely and then change the subject. My father, never one for emotional labor, just shrugged and said brothers and sisters fight sometimes. We'd work it out eventually. Eventually stretched on until I stopped believing in it. I dated, I worked, I built a life. Marcus came into my life about 2 years ago, steady and kind and completely uncomplicated. He's an architect, quiet in a way that some tall men are, like they've learned to take up less space to make other people comfortable. He loves his mother, calls her every Sunday without fail. He cries at Pixar movies. He proposed 6 months ago with a ring he designed himself, and I said yes without hesitation. We were supposed to get married next spring. We'd already sent out save the dates. I thought about inviting David, of course. I'd agonized over it for weeks, talked it through with Marcus and my therapist, and anyone else who would listen. In the end, I decided I would send him an invitation, leave the door open but not expect anything. I'd done my part. The rest was up to him. I never got the chance to send it. He showed up at my door yesterday, and now nothing makes sense. It was raining, the kind of heavy, pounding rain that turns streets into rivers and seeps through even the best waterproof jackets. I was home alone. Marcus was at a client dinner, and I was curled up on the couch with a glass of wine and a trashy reality TV show, enjoying the rare quiet. When the doorbell rang, I almost didn't answer it. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the rain was coming down so hard I couldn't imagine anyone being out in it, unless it was an emergency. But I looked through the peephole, and there he was, David, soaking wet, hair plastered his forehead, shoulders hunched against the cold, and in his arms, wrapped in a thin, sodden blanket, was a baby. I opened the door. I don't think I said anything. I just stood there, frozen, while the rain blew in and soaked my entryway rug, while my brother looked at me with eyes so hollow I barely recognized them. "I didn't know where else to go," he said. His voice cracked on the last word. "I'm sorry. I know I don't have the right, but I didn't know where else to go." The baby started to cry. It was a thin, reedy sound, weak in a way that made my stomach clench. I stepped aside and let them in. The rest of the night was a blur of activity, the kind of mechanical doing that keeps you from having to think about what any of it means. I took the baby while David peeled off his wet jacket. I laid her on the couch, unwrapped the wet blanket, and checked her over with hands that shook. She was tiny, maybe 3 months old, with a thatch of dark hair and eyes that were startlingly blue. She was underdressed with weather in a thin onesie, and her skin was cold to the touch. I wrapped her in my own fleece throw, The good one from Pottery Barn that Marcus complains is too expensive for a blanket, and I held her close until she stopped shivering. David watched me from the doorway to the living room, water pooling at his feet. He looked terrible, thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under his eyes and a weeks-old beard that made him look haggard instead of stylish. His clothes were cheap, worn, nothing like the designer suits he used to wear to work. The David I'd known had been on a fast track to something great, a rising star at a consulting firm, always polished and put together. This David looked like he'd been sleeping in his car. "Whose baby is this?" I asked when she'd finally settled, her little fist wrapped around my finger, her eyes drifting closed. He didn't answer right away. He sat down heavily on the edge of my armchair, elbows on his knees, head hanging. For a long moment, the only sound was the rain against the windows and the baby's soft breathing. "Mine," he said finally. "Her name is Lily. She's mine." Something cold settled in my chest. "Yours. You have a baby. You have a baby and you didn't tell me?" "I didn't tell anyone." He looked up at me then, and I saw tears in his eyes. I was ashamed. I was so ashamed, and I didn't know how to explain. And then everything got worse. I didn't know how to come back from it. "Where's her mother?" He flinched. It was subtle, just a slight tightening of his jaw, but I caught it. "She left 3 weeks ago. She left Lily with me, and she walked out, and she hasn't come back." "Left." I repeated the word like it was foreign, like I'd never heard it before. "Left where?" "Left why?" "David, you need to start making sense, or I'm calling police." "No police." He said it too quickly, too sharply. The baby stirred in my arms, and he lowered his voice. "Please, no police. I can't. They'll take her. They'll take Lily, and she's all I have." I looked down at the baby in my arms, at the perfect curve of her cheek, the delicate flutter of her eyelashes. She was so small, so vulnerable, and she was my niece, my brother's daughter. Family, whether I'd known about her or not. Start at the beginning, I said, and don't leave anything out. He told me everything. It took hours, long after the rain stopped, long after Marcus came home to find his fiancée holding a strange baby while her long-estranged brother wept in his armchair. Marcus took it in stride, because that's who he is, the kind of man who adapts to chaos without blinking. He made coffee, ordered pizza, sat quietly and listened while David unraveled the last 3 years of his life. After Rachel, David fell apart. I'd known that much, or at least I'd suspected it. He quit his job at the consulting firm, moved out of the city, disappeared into a version of himself that none of U.S. could reach. What I hadn't known was how bad it got. He spent 6 months drinking too much, sleeping too little, burning through his savings on nothing in particular. He hit bottom in a motel room in New Jersey, woke up in his own vomit, and somehow found the strength to crawl his way back. He got sober. He found a job, a small accounting firm in a suburb I'd never heard of. He started going to meetings, found a sponsor, rebuilt himself piece by piece. And then he met Jenna. Jenna was a waitress at the diner, where he ate breakfast every morning. She was young, 23 to his 31, with a hard life behind her and a harder edge to her smile. She had a 3-year-old son, a little boy named Corey, and she was fighting for custody with an ex-husband who made her life hell. David fell for her slowly, the way you fall for someone when you're both too damaged to rush into anything. They were careful with each other. They made sense. They moved in together after a year. David helped with Corey, took him to soccer practice, helped with his homework, became the stable father figure the boy had never had. He loved Jenna, and he loved Corey, and for the first time since everything fell apart, he started to believe he could have a normal life. Then Jenna got pregnant. It wasn't planned. They'd been careful mostly, but accidents happen. Jenna was terrified, convinced that another baby would ruin her custody case, that her ex would use it against her. David promised to support her, whatever she decided. She decided to keep the baby. Lily was born 3 months ago, tiny but perfect, with her mother's dark hair and her father's blue eyes. For a few weeks, they were happy. Exhausted, broke, but happy. David thought he'd finally found his footing, that the universe had decided to stop punishing him. He let himself imagine a future, one where he had a family, where the mistakes of his past were just that, past. Then Jenna's ex-husband filed for full custody of Corey. He'd found out about the new baby, found out that David wasn't just a roommate but a partner, a father figure. He argued that Jenna's living situation was unstable, that a new baby and an unmarried partner created an unsuitable environment for Corey. The court agreed. Jenna lost custody of her son. She didn't handle it well. She started drinking again, disappearing for hours, coming home with hollow eyes and hollow excuses. David tried to hold everything together, to take care of Lily, to keep Jenna from falling completely apart. It wasn't enough. 3 weeks ago, she kissed Lily on the forehead, told David she couldn't do this anymore, and walked out the door. He waited for her to come back. He called, texted, drove to her usual haunts. Nothing. He reported her missing to the police, but they said she was an adult. She had the right to leave. There was nothing they could do unless there was evidence of foul play. He was alone with a 3-month-old baby, no family nearby, no support system, running out of money and running out of hope. He lasted 3 weeks. 3 weeks of sleepless nights, of trying to work from home while caring for an infant, of watching his savings dwindle and his sanity fray. 3 weeks of isolation, too ashamed to reach out to anyone, too proud to admit he'd failed again. Finally, last night, he packed Lily in the car and started driving. He drove for 6 hours through the rain, across state lines, to the one person he thought might help him, the one person he'd spent 3 years pushing away. "I didn't know if you'd even open the door," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know if you'd still hate me." "I never hated you," I said. "I was hurt. I was angry. But I never hated you." He cried then, the kind of ugly, heaving sobs that come from somewhere deep and broken. I held Lily with one arm and reached for his hand with the other, and we sat like that for a long time, brother and sister, bridging 3 years of silence with a single touch. Marcus cleared the dishes, made up the guest room, found a pack of diapers and some formula at the 24-hour drugstore down the street. He didn't ask questions, didn't offer opinions. He just did what needed to be done, the way he always does. When I finally put Lily down in a makeshift bed of dresser drawers lined with towels, when David had showered and collapsed into sleep, Marcus held me in the kitchen and let me cry. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "I don't know," I said, "but I think we just became parents." The next few days were a crash course in infant care. I'd never been around babies much, never held one for more than a few minutes, never changed a diaper or mixed formula or understood the difference between a hunger cry and a tired cry and an "I just want to be held" cry. David was better. He'd had 3 weeks of practice, but he was also exhausted and broken and barely functioning. So we figured out together, the 3 of us, falling into a rhythm that felt both natural and completely surreal. I called my mother on the 2nd day. I had to. She deserved to know she had a granddaughter, and I couldn't carry the weight of this secret alone. She cried when I told her, the same kind of ugly sobs David had cried, and she was on a plane the next morning. My father came with her, quiet and uncomfortable, but trying, always trying. They met Lily, held her, marveled at her tiny fingers and toes. They talked to David. Careful conversations that tiptoed around the last 3 years, avoiding the sharp edges of our family's fractures. On the 4th day, David and I took a walk. Just the 2 of us, Leaving Lily with my mother, walking to the neighborhood where I'd lived for 2 years without him knowing my address. The fall leaves were turning, crunching under our feet, and the air had that crisp edge that comes before winter. "I'm sorry," he said, not for the first time, but somehow this time it felt different, deeper. "I'm sorry for shutting you out. I'm sorry for making you the villain. You didn't deserve any of it." "I know," I said, "but I also understand why you did it. You were hurting. You needed someone to blame, and I was there. That doesn't make it right." "No, but it makes it human." We walked in silence for a while, past the park where Marcus and I sometimes had picnics, past a little coffee shop where I bought my beans, past all the ordinary places of my ordinary life that my brother had never seen. "What happens now?" I asked. He sighed. "I don't know. I have to go back eventually. I have a job, an apartment, a life I've been neglecting. I have to figure out what to do about Jenna, about Lily, about everything. But I don't know how to do it alone anymore." "You're not alone," I said. "You never were. You just forgot." He stopped walking, turned to face me. "Can you ever really forgive me? For all of it? For Rachel? For shutting you out? For showing up on your doorstep with a baby and no warning?" I thought about it. I thought about 3 years of silence, of holidays spent alone, of wondering if I'd ever get my brother back. I thought about the betrayal I'd felt when he chose to cut me out instead of leaning on me. I thought about all the moments we'd missed, all the conversations we'd never have, all the years that were just gone. And then I thought about the way he'd looked at me when I opened the door, desperate and broken and hopeful. I thought about the weight of Lily in my arms, the warmth of her small body against mine. I thought about family and what it means, and how sometimes you have to let go of the past to have any chance at a future. "I forgive you," I said, "not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to stop carrying this around, and because Lily deserves to have us both in her life, together, the way family should be." He hugged me then, right there on the sidewalk, in front of God and everyone. He hugged me like he was drowning, and I was air, and I hugged him back just as hard. We stood like that for a long time, two people who'd lost each other and somehow found their way back. And when we finally pulled apart, we were both crying. "I don't know how to be a father," he said. "I don't know how to do any of this." "Neither do I," I said, "but we'll figure it out. Together." That was 2 months ago. A lot has happened since then, some of it good, some of it hard, all of it bringing us to where we are now. David went back to his apartment, packed up his things, and moved into our guest room. It was supposed to be temporary, just until he figured out his next steps. But temporary has a way of becoming permanent when you're not looking. He found a job at a local accounting firm, one that doesn't pay as well as his old job, but has better hours and understanding bosses. He takes Lily to daycare in the mornings, picks her up in the evenings, does bath time and bedtime, and all the 1,000 small things that add up to parenting. Marcus and I postponed the wedding. It was an easy decision, really. We couldn't plan a wedding while our lives were in chaos, and neither of us wanted to get married without David there, without Lily there, without the family we were still learning how to be. We'll do it next spring, maybe when things have settled. Or maybe we'll just go to City Hall and make it official and have a party later. We're not in a hurry anymore. We have time. Jenna came back. It was 3 weeks after David showed up at my door, a Tuesday afternoon, when I was home with Lily, because daycare had closed for some staff training. There was a knock, and I opened the door, and there she was, younger than I'd expected, with dark circles under her eyes and a tremor in her hands. She looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. "Is Lily here?" she asked. "I need to see my baby." I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I had the right to let her in, to keep her out, to make any decision at all. So I called David, and I put her on the phone, and I listened to one side of the conversation that changed everything. She'd been in rehab. That's where she'd gone, not to run away, but to try to put herself back together. She'd known she was falling apart, known she couldn't be the mother Lily needed, and she'd made a choice. A hard choice, maybe the hardest she'd ever made. She'd found a state-funded program, checked herself in, and spent the last 2 months getting sober, getting therapy, getting ready to fight for her life and her daughter. She hadn't told David because she was ashamed. She hadn't told him because she was afraid he'd try to stop her, or worse, that he wouldn't care. She convinced herself that he was better off without her, that Lily was better off without her, that she destroyed everything good in her life and didn't deserve to be part of fixing it. It wasn't until she'd been in treatment for 6 weeks, until she started to see clearly, that she realized how wrong she'd been. David came home early that day. I don't know what they said to each other, what words passed between them in the hours they spent locked in the guest room with the door closed. I took Lily to the park, pushed her on the baby swings, watched her laugh at nothing at all. When we came back, Jenna was sitting on the couch with David's arm around her, both of them red-eyed but calm. "She's going to stay," David said, "if that's okay with you. She's going to stay, and we're going to figure this out." I looked at Jenna, really looked at her, and I saw someone I recognized, someone who'd made mistakes, who'd hurt people, who'd run away because she didn't know what else to do, someone who was trying, really trying, to be better. I'd been angry at her, on David's behalf, on Lily's behalf. But looking at her now, I couldn't find that anger anymore. All I found was hope, fragile and tentative. But there, "Okay," I said, "but you hurt him again, you hurt that baby again, and I will end you. I don't care how much therapy you've had." Jenna laughed, a wet, surprised sound. "Fair enough. She's been here ever since. She goes to meetings every day, sees a therapist twice a week, works part-time at a coffee shop while she looks for something better. She's learning how to be Lily's mother again, how to be David's partner, how to be part of a family that didn't have to take her back, but did. It's not easy. There are bad days, days when the old patterns creep back in, when Jenna's eyes go distant and David's jaw tightens, and I can feel the tension crackling in the air. But there are good days, too. Days when Lily laughs and Jenna cries happy tears, and David looks at both of them like they're the only people in the world. My mother comes to visit every weekend. She's retired now, and she's thrown herself into grandmotherhood with a fervor that's almost overwhelming. She brings toys, clothes, books about child development. She offers advice whether we want it or not. She holds Lily for hours, sings her old lullabies, tells her stories about David when he was little. It's healing, somehow, watching my mother fall in love with this baby. It's healing for all of us. My father is still figuring it out. He's not good with emotions, never has been, and the chaos of the last few months has left him adrift. He shows up, holds Lily awkwardly, asks careful questions about nothing in particular. He's trying in his own way, and I've learned to accept that trying is enough. He'll get there eventually. We all will. David and I talk now. Really talk. The way we used before everything fell apart. We talk about Lily, about Jenna, about the years we lost and the future we're building. We talk about Rachel sometimes, carefully, like picking at a scar that's still healing. He's dated a little since her, nothing serious, but he thinks maybe that's okay. Maybe he doesn't need to find someone right away. Maybe he just needs to be present for the life he's already building. "You saved me," he told me last week. We were sitting on the back porch, watching the sunset, Lily asleep in his arms. "You know that, right? If you hadn't opened that door, if you hadn't let us in, I don't know what I would have done." "You would have figured it out," I said. "You're stronger than you think." "Maybe, but I wouldn't have wanted to. You gave me a reason to want to." I thought about that for a long time after he went inside, about reasons and wanting and the strange ways that family finds us even when we think we've lost it forever. I thought about my wedding, postponed but not canceled, and how different it would be with David there, with Lily there, with all of us together. I thought about Marcus, steady and kind, who'd taken in my broken family without a moment's hesitation, because he loved me, and that's what love does. I thought about forgiveness, and how it's not a single moment, but a process, a choice you make over and over again until one day you realize you're not choosing anymore. You're just living. Tonight, we're all having dinner together. David and Jenna, Lily in her high chair smearing pureed carrots on everything within reach. Marcus, home early from work, making his famous spaghetti sauce. My mother, chattering about Lily's latest milestones. My father, quiet but present, holding my mother's hand under the table. Me, watching them all, feeling something I haven't felt in years. Whole, that's the word. I feel whole. The doorbell rings right as Marcus is setting the pasta on the table. We all look at each other, confused. We're not expecting anyone. David goes to answer it, and I hear his sharp intake of breath from the hallway. David, I call out. Who is it? He comes back into the dining room, and behind him is a woman I've never seen before. She's maybe 60, with gray-streaked hair and a tired face and eyes that are wet with tears. She's holding a photo album, the kind with a fabric cover and handwritten labels, and she's looking at Lily like she's seen a ghost. "I'm sorry to interrupt your dinner," she says, her voice shaking. "I'm David's birth mother. I've been looking for him for 34 years, and I think it's time we talked." The room goes silent. David looks at me, his eyes wide with shock and something else, something I can't quite name. My mother's face has gone pale. My father is frozen, a forkful of spaghetti halfway to his mouth. And Lily, oblivious to everything, laughs and throws her carrots on the floor. I don't know what happens next. I don't know where this story goes from here or how it ends, or if it ends at all. All I know is that we're together, all of us, in this moment, in this room. And whatever comes, whatever new surprises wait around the corner, we'll face them the same way we've faced everything else. Together,